Imagine this. Over the past century, our planet's average temperature has risen by more than 1 degree Celsius. That's equivalent to the heat produced by billions of atomic bombs. This is not just a hypothetical scenario. This is the shocking reality we are facing today. The Earth's thermostat is not just slightly off, it's skyrocketing, and the effects are far-reaching and tangible. Our world is witnessing the highest temperatures in recorded history. The last 5 years have been the hottest since the late 19th century. But what does this mean for us and our planet? It means more than just a warmer summer or a milder winter. It means more frequent and severe heat waves that lead to droughts, wildfires, and even heat-related deaths. It means melting glaciers resulting in rising sea levels, threatening to submerge coastal cities and create millions of climate refugees. Our planet is not just getting warmer, it's getting more volatile. The weather patterns we've come to rely on are changing, becoming less predictable and more extreme. We're seeing more hurricanes, more floods, more wildfires, all because our planet's temperature is on the rise. This isn't just about polar bears losing their homes or icebergs melting in the Arctic. This is about the world we're leaving for our children and grandchildren. The cities they will live in, the air they will breathe, the food they will eat. And yet, despite the overwhelming evidence, there are those who continue to deny the reality of climate change. They choose to ignore the facts, dismiss the science, and downplay the risks. But we cannot afford to ignore the truth any longer. The scorching truth is that our planet is heating up, and it's happening right now. It's time to face the reality, challenge the denial, and take action to protect our planet. Because if we don't, we may find ourselves living on a planet that's not just uncomfortably warm, but uninhabitable. Remember, we don't have a planet B. We only have this one, and it's up to us to protect it. Let's not allow the temperature to rise any further. Let's turn down the heat before it's too late. The scorching truth is that our planet is heating up, and it's happening right now. Despite the hard scientific facts, there are still those who stubbornly deny the reality of climate change. Now, this might seem bewildering to many of us. After all, the evidence is staring us right in the face. Melting ice caps, extreme weather events, rising sea levels, these aren't just abstract concepts or distant problems. They're happening here, now, affecting real people and ecosystems. So why is climate change denial so prevalent? It's not a simple question, and the answers are as varied as they are complex. For some, it's a matter of misinformation. The internet is a breeding ground for falsehoods and half-truths, and climate change is no exception. False claims are shared and reshared, creating an echo chamber of denial. Some of these claims are laughably absurd, like the notion that climate change is a hoax concocted by the world's scientists for some nefarious purpose. Others, though, are more insidious, twisting the facts just enough to sow doubt. But it's not just random internet users spreading these falsehoods. There are certain groups and individuals with a vested interest in denying climate change. They may be connected to industries that contribute heavily to greenhouse gas emissions, or they may hold political views that oppose environmental regulations. These groups often have the resources to spread their message far and wide, influencing public opinion and even policy. It's also worth noting that denial isn't always outright. There are those who downplay the severity of climate change or argue that it's a natural occurrence, not influenced by human activity. This type of denial can be just as damaging, as it encourages complacency and inaction. In the end, though, denial is denial. Whether it's born out of misinformation, self-interest, or a refusal to accept uncomfortable truths, it stands in the way of the action we desperately need to take. The power of denial is strong, but the power of truth is stronger. Let's arm ourselves with knowledge, challenge the deniers, and work together to protect our precious planet. After all, it's the only one we've got, the only one. Scene script. Climate change deniers have a toolbox full of tricks to cast shadows on the undeniable scientific consensus. Imagine you're a magician. Your best trick? Deception. Now picture this. Instead of pulling rabbits out of hats, these magicians are pulling out questionable data and using it to cast doubt on the scientific consensus about climate change. This isn't an innocent magic show, folks. It's a deliberate tactic used by climate change deniers to confuse, mislead, and ultimately deceive the public. One of their favorite tricks is cherry-picking data. This involves selecting pieces of evidence that support their denial, while conveniently ignoring the overwhelming evidence that contradicts their views. It's like plucking the ripest cherries from a tree and leaving the rest to rot. They may point to a particularly cold winter as proof that global warming is a hoax, while ignoring the long-term trend of rising global temperatures. Another sleight of hand in their arsenal? Funding biased research. Yes, you heard it right. There's a lot of money in denial. Certain industries, think oil, gas, and coal, have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. They fund research designed to downplay the effects of climate change or even deny its existence altogether. The result? A smokescreen of misinformation that clouds the public's understanding of the issue. But here's the kicker. These deceptive tactics don't just cast doubt on climate change. They undermine science as a whole. When cherry-picked data and biased research are presented as credible sources of information, it erodes trust in scientific institutions and hampers our ability to make informed decisions about our future. The stakes are high and the tricks are dirty, but the truth? It's resilient. Because no matter how many times it's twisted, stretched, or distorted, it always finds a way to bounce back. So, let's equip ourselves with knowledge and critical thinking. Let's be discerning consumers of information and question the source of our data. Because when we do, we're not just defending the truth about climate change, we're defending the integrity of science itself. Remember, when facts are twisted, the truth becomes a casualty. Why would anyone deny the reality of climate change, you ask? Well, the answer often lies in the dollar bills. Unraveling the motives behind climate change denial is like peeling back the layers of an onion. At the core, you'll often find financial interests and political agendas. Let's start with the financial aspect. In a world heavily reliant on fossil fuels, it's no surprise that industries tied to coal, oil, and gas might resist the idea of climate change. Acknowledging the fact that our carbon emissions are driving up global temperatures would mean accepting the need to transition towards greener alternatives. This would inevitably result in a shakeup of power structures and a potential loss of profits for these industries. Now imagine you're a big shot in one of these fossil fuel companies. You've got shareholders breathing down your neck, demanding returns on their investments. Would you willingly give up your gravy train? Probably not. So some choose to fund biased research or spread misinformation to cast doubt on the scientific consensus around climate change. It's a classic case of the fox guarding the hen house. But it's not just about the money. Climate change denial is also deeply rooted in political ideologies. For some, the actions required to mitigate climate change, such as government regulation of industry and international cooperation, are seen as threats to personal freedom and national sovereignty. They view climate change as a ruse cooked up by those with a big government agenda. So we see that climate change denial is often less about rejecting the science and more about protecting vested interests. It's a high-stakes game of chess with our planet as the board. The players are willing to sacrifice pawns even at the expense of future generations. In the end, it's about power, profit, and politics. And it's a dangerous game because while we can argue about ideologies and negotiate financial interests, we can't negotiate with the laws of physics or the rising global temperatures. When the stakes are high, so is the temptation to ignore the inconvenient truth. Climate change denial is not just an intellectual exercise. It's a dangerous game that threatens our planet. The first danger lies in the delay of action. When we refuse to acknowledge the reality of climate change, we lose valuable time that could be used to mitigate its effects. The longer we wait, the more drastic and expensive the necessary measures become. Denial also fuels the spread of misinformation, creating a cycle that is hard to break. It's like a wildfire. The more it spreads, the harder it is to contain. This misinformation not only confuses the public, but also influences policy decisions, leading to inadequate or misguided responses to climate change. Moreover, climate change denial undermines the very essence of science. It depicts science as a matter of opinion rather than a systematic and rigorous process of seeking truth. This damages the public's trust in scientific research, which is crucial for addressing not just climate change, but a myriad of other pressing issues. Lastly, climate change denial breeds complacency. It gives us a false sense of security, making us believe that we are safe from the devastating impacts of climate change. But the truth is, we are all vulnerable. From extreme weather events to food and water shortages, no corner of the globe is immune. But it's not too late. We can still turn the tide. The first step is education. We need to arm ourselves with accurate information about climate change, its causes, and its effects. We must question the sources of our information and seek out the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Next, we need to support policies and actions that combat climate change. This could be anything from voting for leaders who prioritize the environment to reducing our carbon footprint to supporting renewable energy initiatives. Every little bit helps. And finally, we need to speak up. Silence is complicity. We need to challenge climate change denial whenever and wherever we see it. The future of our planet is in our hands. It's time to shake off the shackles of denial and embrace the truth of climate change.